Is going on, everyone? This is Kyle, and this is going to be a Walking 90 quick hits. So, for this week's quick hits, we're going to go over what happened in the USL Jagermeister Cup. As many of you know, this is the first year where USL Championship teams are going to get involved with the Jaeger Cup along with USL League One teams. So, we have different groups, all of them are going to be regionalized. So, groups one starting over on the West Coast, making its way to the East. So with that, we were able to get some USL League One and USL Championship matchups. We're not going to go through each and every like in the specific order. I'm just going to go off of each one, kind of try and keep it into a minute or minute and a half breakdown of what happened. And hopefully I don't go too long, but odds are we will because it's Walking 90. Of course, we're going to go long. So we're just going to start off with the simple one. FC Naples, they did their normal FC Naples stuff. They got a goal, they sat back, they absorbed pressure, they did it well. Pretty much what we expect out of Naples at this point. You know, it is impressive how they are able to pretty much continuously play up to the competition level, as we saw in the Open Cup against the Tampa Bay Rowdies. This is a team that is doing what they have. They have their structure, they have their style of play, and it's like, yeah, it's working. And it's one of those that I think will continue to work. Now, will it eventually get exposed? That is a possibility. But like I said, as long as Naples continues to play to the level of its competition, I think they're going to be in pretty good shape, is what I'm going to go with. So next, I'm going to shoot over. We started off in Florida. We're actually heading a little bit up north. Charlotte Independence was able to get revenge on their Open Cup loss to NCFC by beating them in pretty much the way that we expected out of Charlotte. They got two quick goals early within the first 20 minutes. North Carolina was able to get a goal shortly after Charlotte's penalty, but after that, Charlotte was just holding on, and it was enough to beat North Carolina FC. Now, could Charlotte have done a little bit better? Yes, but also there is that aspect of North Carolina really did have some chances that went begging, but that's the game of soccer. You got to finish your chances. North Carolina was unable to do that. Charlotte did. 2 shots on target, 2 goals. Similar to their first matchup between these two teams in the U.S. Open Cup, it was 2 goals for North Carolina and Charlotte. 3 goals for North Carolina on more finishing. Charlotte had 1, but again, it was off of just 1 shot on target. That's going to be a common theme for these USL League One teams, is the shots on target. You'll notice that the teams that really struggled, besides one, weren't able to generate a lot of chances, while the teams that were able to did what they needed to. So good job in Charlotte. Still a weird start to their season, but maybe this is the confidence booster they'll need to potentially go on a run. Then we're going to head up to the Northeast, where Portland unfortunately lost to Hartford. Honestly, it was primarily because Portland had some chances, but were not able to finish. They had 5 shots on target, couldn't get a goal. And this is starting to become a little bit of a theme with Portland. They seem to have an identity. They have the fan support. But right now, that lack of a clinical finisher is really hurting this team. Adding Jake Keegan was supposed to address that. So far, that has not come fully to fruition. So if Portland is going to start wanting to turn these results into wins, they are playing better. It was a better performance from Portland, but the problem is they don't have someone clinical enough to really get these chances. If they had someone else more clinical, they could have won this game against Hartford. Just to continue on, going over to West, my Ford Madison did not do so hot against Indy 11. For 70 minutes of this game, Indy 11 and Ford Madison were relatively evenly matched. There wasn't that many clear-cut chances. Both teams seemed to snuff out any potential attacking threats, but Madison just made too many mistakes on the first, third, and fourth goal. Just mistakes from players that you don't expect them to make mistakes from, between poor passes, getting picked off the ball in their third, and just unable to deal with the threat that Indy had. So unfortunate performance by Madison, but Indy capitalized on those chances, were very clinical, and you kind of notice, like, once they got that first goal, their confidence really kicked in and just were able to snuff out anything Ford Madison could do. Then we look at Knoxville, who has really done a good job. They have been pretty impressive. They were able to get into a draw with Tulsa, but got the penalty shootout win, which was huge for them. I think Knoxville has been the biggest, other than Naples, I would say Knoxville has been one of the biggest surprises early so far this season. They seem to have finally figured out an attacking identity that they lacked for the last couple of years. Still could potentially improve on things defensively, but offensively, this is the best Knoxville attacking unit we saw. And also shout out to them. They had a very large turnout. I think it was almost just about 7,000 people, which is the highest that a USL League One team has seen. That's really impressive. Congrats to Knoxville. Will this be able to sustain itself? That's going to be the big question. But so far, things are going well down in Tennessee. We'll stick with the kind of mid-Atlantic. Louisville was just a better team than Richmond. I don't really know what more you can take from that match. Make sure to check out River City 93. They'll probably have a better breakdown of it. But in my opinion, I don't think this was really anything revealing. Louisville, one of the best teams in the championship. Richmond, a solid team, but the talent disparity there, it was going to happen. But maybe they'll see what happens as they bounce back. Speaking of teams that might need a bounce back, and they desperately need one, Greenville. I'm not saying this team is in a crisis, but this is another loss, this time to South Georgia Tormenta, who were able to beat Greenville 2-1. And I don't know what you do at this point for Greenville, because right now it's not a good run of form. And at least with some of the other teams, you could say, hey, maybe they had a couple matches, they had their run, or, still early in the season, they've only played 3 or 4 matches. Greenville's played more matches than most of the League One teams, and they are still struggling, and they still don't seem to have answers, and they seem to continuously be unable to get out of its own way. I think that's the best way to describe it. Could that change? Maybe, but as of right now, if I'm a Greenville supporter, I'm very concerned about this team's form. I'm very concerned about this team's play overall this season. It seems like there are a few moments where maybe they had it figured out, but overall, it's not looking good for Greenville Triumph. I'm sure things will turn around, but as of right now, it's definitely a poor run of form, and they're gonna have to figure it out this weekend against Richmond. Tormenta, well done. Tormenta did what they needed to do. It was could it have been an easier way of doing it? Yes, but it's Tormenta. We love Tormenta because it's never the easy route for them. It's always let's make this as stressful as possible. They got the penalty early, then they got the goal right before halftime, thinking everything's going to go well, and then in the second half, Greenville is able to flip it around, get some momentum, got a late goal. But honestly, Greenville only had one shot on target. But Tormenta, attacking-wise, this was the best that we have seen from them this season. So good on Tormenta. Maybe this attack can continue on. The most surprising, I think, performance was Texoma. As Ebony and I discussed in the last episode of Walking 90, Texoma against Madison was the surprise result. And they've continued to have an impressive defensive showing. It seems as though maybe they figured out what they were doing wrong and made the changes that were needed, but they were able to hold El Paso. They had a good showing. Unfortunately, lost on penalties, but if you're Texoma, you feel good about it because this is, again, your second straight match where you look more defensively sound, and that was something that was plaguing them the most out of everything, is they just looked completely lost defensively. They seem to have figured it out. Will this continue? Who knows? But 2 matches now where they have shown a defensive side of themselves, which is needed. Can't really complain about that too much. Westchester were crushed by Rhode Island. Again, this is another one where it kind of felt like the talent level was just a little bit off between the two teams. I don't know really what more you can draw for that. I mean, this is a Rhode Island team that did just make the USL Championship final a year ago. And Westchester's still working its way into it, still trying to figure out their own identity, their own style of play. Again, I would not panic if I was Westchester. It's definitely been a frustrating stretch of games, and defensively, they do need to figure that out. Just because now you've allowed 4 games against Rhode Island, 4 against Richmond, 3 against Detroit, and 2 against Avialta. Even in their cup match, they allowed 2 matches. So I think Westchester defensively need to figure it out if they want to improve throughout the season. And again, this was one of those where just maybe a couple of things go their way if the chances fall, but overall, it was still just not a good defensive showing, and Westchester will need to change that. Union Omaha faced New Mexico, and New Mexico pretty much handled them with ease. Again, how much to read into it, I don't know, but this is the first time Omaha's lost to a championship opponent. New Mexico could have scored more goals, to be honest, so the score line is a little bit more flattering. Just one of those where just was not a good showing from Omaha, but as we've seen from Omaha against championship teams, you feel as though they'll probably turn it around. But again, this is also a New Mexico team that is really, really good, so nothing to be ashamed about, but definitely something to keep an eye on. Will Omaha have a very tough group, so they're going to need to have better performances than they did against New Mexico. Birmingham also cruised against Chattanooga. Chattanooga got a late consolation goal, didn't really matter. So again, talent disparity is there. Chattanooga is still unsure. It feels as though they're still more trying to out physical teams, which can work in USL League One, but it's not going to work against most championship teams. They have their Open Cup run. So again, the style of play is not really going to translate perfectly, but maybe that's one where a couple tweaks here or there and they can figure it out. And then we have Spokane, who were able to win against Oakland. Spokane is a weird team. It feels as though they have weeks where they show they're really good and they are as talented as we expect them to be. And then they have weeks where it's just not clicking for them. This was more this is the Spokane we expected. Does them play at home play a factor into it? I don't fully know. But again, this was another team that needed to have better showings than they had, and Spokane did that. Unlike Greenville, Spokane was able to get the performances that they needed. So we'll see if that continues, but this is a good start for them. Maybe this is what we're starting to figure out. They're starting to get things put together. They've gone 4 unbeaten now. Could this turn around? We'll see. But again, good on Spokane. They needed that win. And AV Alta. They did normal AV Alta things against Sacramento. They had the idea. They started well. They had the good idea with the passing. The offense seemed to make sense. Things were clicking, and they couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. So normal AV Alta things. I don't understand why this team cannot do the final part. It is frustrating, but I digress. We've already been over that enough times. And they play again as of recording this, so maybe they'll figure it out against Las Vegas. Maybe they do the normal thing. But at this point, AV Alta is going to be a team that you watch them and you think they're going to make things work, and then it just hasn't. Time will tell. So those are all the breakdown. I would say teams that should feel good about their Jagermeister weekend: Naples, Charlotte, Knoxville, Tormenta, and Texoma. All of them should definitely feel good about how they perform. Spokane can be included in that as well. They can look back, even though some of them didn't win, they can at least look back and say, we performed well against higher level competition. For teams that probably aren't going to feel so great, Madison, Omaha, Richmond, Westchester, Chattanooga, pretty much the teams that got crushed, or the other team was just able to have their way with them. Again, this is only week 1 of the Jagermeister Cup. I'm sure as the season progresses and more teams get match fitness and more familiarity, we'll start possibly seeing how things play out. But for now, this is Kyle. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you all later.